Hello, it's Reija and welcome to another video. Today I am here to bring you another original tag. This is the closing part in my Hopeful book tag series, and this time I want to go more introspective, more about individual views on hope and resistance, and also a little bit towards content creation. So I present to you the Hopeful Booktuber tag. I hope you will enjoy. Hope means different things to different people. How would you define hope? For me, hope is about resistance and resilience. Hope to me is not a passive thing. You actively have to remain hopeful. You actively have to remain optimistic. It is an active state, not a passive state, to me. And I feel like you also need hope in order to pursue justice and also in order to be able to remain active and remain active in your activism specifically. If you are not hopeful, you will fall into apathy. You will fall into a state of mind where I won't do anything because nothing is going to change anyway. Therefore, if you constantly are like, I'm hoping that things will be different, you are manifesting a world where things can be different, and you are choosing to stay in a state of mind where you are actively able to make things happen. That to me is hope. Hope is about an active state of mind and also an active choice to remain optimistic in face of everything life and the world throws at you. And it is also a sort of, I would say, a kind of form of protecting yourself from nihilism. It is a helpful tool. I will say that my favorite brand of hope comes with a healthy dose of activism, where you actively pursue initiatives that will endeavor to make things better for people that are not as well off as you might be. As a content creator, how does hope and hopefulness manifest in your content? Okay, so as I said, for me, hope is all about resistance and remaining optimistic and remaining excited about the possibilities of where our futures might be headed, not just wallowing in self-pity and negativity and trying to resist falling into apathy. The way I try to bring a sense of hope in my content is to actively be myself. I know that people who look like me, who are plus size, who are queer, who are not native English speakers, for etc., are not necessarily always presented in media. So I know that for someone, I can be an inspiration. I will also say that in my content, for example, with the Shorts and Sorcery Book Club, I try to make an active effort in centering voices that are not often heard, and I try to make an active effort to bring awareness to stories and content and creators that might have a harder time getting pushed out into the mainstream because of, like, for example, publishing not marketing them enough, or not focusing their efforts to like pushing these books and stories out to the public. So I try to do my best to have those stories reach as many people as possible, even though my platform may not be as big as someone else's. But it is just that even the small effort will eventually bring forth results if as many people as possible kind of take note and share the content. So yeah. And another thing how I try to foster a hopeful environment is by doing these tags, to have people engage and talk about hope, and to talk about it in a meaningful way, not just putting on an overly optimistic veneer. So yeah. Is there a book genre you most associate with hopeful narratives? If yes, why is that? I actually associate romance the most with hopeful narratives, and I think that is because it is often a sort of narrative vehicle for a happy ending. But in my opinion, all of the romances that I have read lately have not just been about the escapism and the smut and all of that, but they have all tried to tackle some more interesting and like crucial themes. For example, A Taste of Golden Iron that I recently read deals a lot with anxiety and coping with that, and has fantastic anxiety representation. I am currently reading Delilah Green Doesn't Care, and that book is all about sort of having abandonment issues and miscommunication with family, and this sort of like trying to repair an estranged relationship with someone. I think that sometimes romance gets an unnecessarily bad rep because it is often seen as just popcorn fiction for women, even though it has like a rich variety of different tropes and themes that it can tackle. And sometimes the romance isn't even the best part of it. It is just like you came for the romance, but you stayed for the discussion of systemic oppression. It's like it has that sense of optimism and hope baked into the core of the genre, but it can like deal with such rich variety of themes and topics. Not that any other genre can, but I just feel that if one genre is like centered around hope and hopefulness, it is romance. Recommend 3 books or stories with themes of hope and resistance. Bonus points if they're new releases. So the first book I want to recommend is Bitter by Akwaeke Emezi. Now, if you have read Bitter, you might be surprised because Bitter is also very brutal and tragic. But I would say that even though it is very visceral in terms of how it deals with oppression and activism and protest, the core idea around Bitter is essentially all about hope and having, and not necessarily even having hope, because the main character is very angry and frustrated and scared about the world that she's living in and her situation. But I think that Bitter is all about finding hope and finding hope within yourself and finding your community and the tools you can use and the tools you can have to fight for a better world. So in that sense, I would say that Bitter is a highly optimistic book, even though it might not seem like it from first glance or first read. Then I am going to cheat a little and not recommend a specific story or a specific book, but a whole damn project, and that is the Fire magazine. So Fire magazine is a science fiction and fantasy semi-prose a literary magazine centered around Black voices and uplifting Black excellence. And I have read a few issues of Fire magazine, and every single issue has had stories that revolve around uplifting other people and sort of like reveling in this idea of community. And I feel like the whole project of that magazine is centered around hope and love. So I would definitely recommend Fire magazine for anyone who has not read it, and even those who have just picked like a single issue or something. I would definitely want everyone to read at least one issue of this project, because they are doing amazing work, and I have found a lot of really cool authors through reading this magazine. So I would recommend Fire magazine for a lot of different hopeful stories. And finally, I already mentioned this earlier in the other question, but I will recommend A Taste of Gold and Iron by Alexandra Rowland. This is their latest novel, and it is a fantasy romance set in a secondary fantasy world. And it is basically a bodyguard romance between a prince and his bodyguard. And it also deals slightly with economics and things, shenanigans. But why I feel like this story, why I feel like the story is very hopeful, is all about finding love for yourself. The main character suffers from quite debilitating anxiety, and this whole story is essentially about them accepting that having anxiety does not make them a lesser person or a lesser being, and that it can just be a part of them, and it doesn't diminish from the other great qualities that they might have. And for me, as someone who has struggled with anxiety for most of my life, I would have killed for having this kind of representation and this kind of discussion around anxiety when I was a teenager or in my early 20s. So I think that in terms of bringing hope to someone who will read this story, this is a fantastic book. And it comes parceled in with a really steamy romance, so there's that also. And there you have it. This has been the Hopeful Booktuber tag, the final tag in the Hopeful Book Tag trilogy, if you will. And feel free to answer any of these prompts in the comment section. And if you are not a booktuber, but you are another kind of content creator, feel free to modify this tag to your intents and purposes. And I will tag everyone. Everyone collectively is tagged to do this. But specifically, I will also be tagging Angela from Literature Science Alliance, Rachel from Kalanadi, Shannon from That's So Poe, Anita from Anita Reads, Daniela from Only If For a Page, Joe from Final Blow Joe, Di from Bookish Di, Kelsey from The Fancy Hat Lady Reads, Kristen from Kristen L. SFF Reader, and Rachel from RK Stumbling Bear. You are all tagged officially, but also everyone else is tagged. So I can't wait to see all of your takes on these different prompts, but also no pressure. And leave me some kind of flower emoji down in the comments so that I know that you were here. And I will see you in another video very soon. Bye bye!